Good afternoon and welcome to the Bob Woodruff Foundation's webinar, Collaborative Approaches to Disaster Relief and Community Recovery. I'm thrilled to see so many people joining us today. I'm Dr. Meg Harrell, Chief Program Officer at the Bob Woodruff Foundation. I welcome everyone joining our webinar and look forward to hearing from our expert panelists. For those of you who may be less familiar, the Bob Woodruff Foundation's Got Your Six network is the largest non-governmental network of organizations serving our military and veteran community. The network includes 350 veteran-serving organizations of varying sizes, maturity, and focus areas. And I'm confident that today's discussion will be helpful for our partners who are boots on the ground serving the military and veteran community. I'd like to encourage everyone joining our call today to type any questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the webinar screen. We will reserve time at the end of the webinar to address questions. As background, in late 2023, the Bob Woodruff Foundation partnered with Craig Newmark Philanthropies to support veterans, service members, and their families affected by natural disasters. Through this partnership, we've provided critical aid to survivors of a tornado near Fort Campbell, Hurricane Beryl in Texas, severe flooding in Houston, and Hurricanes Debbie and Helene across Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. And more recently, we've sent financial support in response to the tragic fires in Los Angeles. And our hearts go out to the families struggling with that most recent horror, and our deepest gratitude goes to the first responders and the organizations working tirelessly to provide support and relief. BWS partnership with Navy Federal Credit Union has been a really important aspect of our work helping military families. In 2024, we partnered with Navy Federal to step up our emergency assistance efforts in partnership with the military relief organizations. At the end of last year, we provided those relief organizations with $500,000 in assistance to ensure that service members, including those whose families had recently been affected by Hurricanes Helene and Milton, had support through the winter. Thank you to the Navy Federal Credit Union for sponsoring this webinar as part of the larger Bob Woodruff Foundation and Navy Federal partnership to support military families. We're honored to be joined today by Christy Selby, Vice President of Branch Operations for Navy Federal Credit Union.
Thank you, Meg Harrell. First, I want to say thank you to the Bob Woodruff Foundation for hosting a webinar on such an important topic and giving Navy Federal an opportunity to share our commitment to our members and communities. It is so important to be a trusted financial partner, especially in times of crisis like natural disasters. As the world's largest credit union, members worldwide count on Navy Federal services. For more than 90 years, we continue to remain vigilant in supporting our members impacted by natural disasters, whether it's wildfires, hurricanes, floods, or other unexpected events. Our top priority is to ensure there is access to critical financial services so our members can focus on what matters most, their safety and their recovery. Prior to any storm or natural disaster, our branch teams take several proactive measures to make sure when disaster strikes, we are ready to continue serving our communities. For example, testing generator functionality, staging generators at various branches in vulnerable locations where storms are likely, and we continue to adjust our approach based on the disaster severity to ensure we're able to support our members in the community. Late 2024, our teams, members, and communities faced two large hurricanes, giving everyone limited time to recover. Those hurricanes made landfall, and Navy Federal had to temporarily close nearly 10 branch locations, so we leveraged our 24/7 contact centers and ATMs to support our members. The impacts were significant, touching not only our members and communities, but also our teams. Because of our team's heart for service, even those dealing with the aftermath of the storms personally, they were eager to find ways to support our communities. Thanks to the outstanding work of our branch and support team, the branches were only closed for a very short period of time. ATMs were still operating in most areas, and in the areas where they were not, we deployed mobile ATMs to ensure our members had access to cash despite the widespread outages. One story that really stands out is someone who lost their home in Helene, bought an RV, and then had to evacuate from Milton. And hearing the anxiety in their voice when they shared they were worried they were going to lose another home. This is one of many stories we hear from our members and communities. Doing what we can to support them is vitally important. In areas affected by the recent wildfires in California, branch team members have partnered with local relief organizations to distribute essential resources to community members. To say I am proud of our teams and how they continue to show up for our members and community is an understatement. I am in awe of how they truly embody Navy Federal's core beliefs of people helping people. Their unwavering dedication to our members and communities is admirable. Navy has also offered monetary contributions to areas most impacted and to the organizations working to aid in recovery efforts. It takes a community to come out on the other side of a natural disaster, and it's important we all play our part to aid in the recovery of our members, friends, families, and communities. I encourage all of us to continue to find ways to collaborate with organizations like those on this call to enhance disaster preparedness and community recovery efforts. I want to say thank you again to the Bob Woodruff Foundation for shining a light on the importance of preparedness, resilience, and community recovery efforts. Back to you, Meg Harrell.
Christy, thank you. And thank you for all that Navy Federal team members are doing. Today, we're here to discuss the ongoing challenges, the lessons learned, and the ways we can continue to work together to support those with the most need in the aftermath of disasters. None of BWF's involvement in disaster response would be possible without our dedicated Got Your Six network partners on the ground in each affected area. Their expertise, resources, and dedication enable them to reach most efficiently and effectively to those in need. We've drawn from our network today and have an incredible panel of experts who will share their insights, experiences, and strategies for effective disaster relief. It's my great pleasure to introduce our panelists. But first, and this is the very nature of our topic today, I need to share that we've lost one of our scheduled panelists, Jason Brand from the Red Cross, to something much more important. Jason is just deployed to the California wildfires. I'm very appreciative that his colleague Lynn Crabb has agreed to join us. Lynn, thank you, and I assure you we'll give you some grace. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Lynn Crabb, Senior Director of Policy and Program Development for the Service to the Armed Forces and International Services, U.S. Programs Division of the Red Cross. The American Red Cross supports military families, veterans, and communities by helping them prepare for and respond to the challenges of military service and emergencies, providing essential resources for large-scale natural disasters. So thank you, Lynn. Also joining us, Dawn Cutler, Rear Admiral, U.S. Navy retired, and Executive Vice President, Chief Ops Officer at the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society. The Navy Marine Corps Relief Society offers vital financial assistance and support programs to active duty and retired sailors, Marines, and their families, including during crises like hurricanes, wildfires, and other natural disasters. We also have Mia Garcia, Marine Corps veteran and Executive Director of the Texas Veterans Network of Combined Arms. Combined Arms is best known for their data-driven platform that connects veterans, top-tier nonprofits, agencies, and organizations, expediting services to individuals while tackling issues like duplication of services and lack of coordination in order to ensure that veterans receive the best resources through every stage of post-military life. The Texas Veterans Network, powered by Combined Arms Advanced Technology, is specifically designed to meet the unique needs of the Texas military and veteran community, providing a wide range of holistic support to service members, veterans, military families, Gold Star families, and caregivers within 72 hours of a request. And finally, Tony Grinston, 16th Sergeant Major of the Army, U.S. Army retired, and Chief Executive Officer, Army Emergency Relief. Very much like the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, but focused on the Army, AER provides financial support to alleviate distress and support the readiness of active duty and retired soldiers and their families, including those impacted by natural disasters or emergencies, through a comprehensive disaster assistance program. Each of our panelists brings a unique perspective to this topic, and I'm thrilled to have each of you join us. Thank you. So I'm going to dig in, and I wish we didn't have to start on this note, but given the news of last night, Lynn, the Red Cross, I understand, also responds to transportation disasters. Can you talk about your current activities in DC?
Thanks to everybody for joining today. The tragic news came out last night about the collision between the helicopter, the Army helicopter, and the American Airlines flight. And our team was on the ground within about an hour, providing services both to family members who were gathering in DC, family members who are gathering in Kansas, to ensure they were being taken care of in the emergency family assistance center. In addition to that, we also are supporting the first responders. We have a team at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, providing them with cots and blankets and food to make sure they're well taken care of while they do the hard work of recovery. In addition to that, we also have our team at Fort Belvoir reaching out to the commander for the service members who were on the helicopter as well. So just a few things that we're doing to make this tragedy smoother for people to deal with and to show up for them when they need it the most.
Hey, Meg, this is Tony. First, let me just say, my heart goes out to all the families that just lost a loved one in the accident last night. And, it was an Army helicopter, Black Hawk. And if you don't know anything about where I'm actually physically sitting or standing, I actually overlook the crash site right now, so I can go to the window and see it. And if it wasn't personal enough there, it's I've flown from Kansas into Reagan, and I've been on a helicopter many times over in that area. So again, my heart just goes out to all those families on both sides. You wake up and you think you're going to land, have a great day, or you're going on a training mission in a helicopter, and then you don't come home. That's terrible. So my heart goes out to them. And we as Army Emergency Relief, we help surviving spouses in times of need. If there's anything that they need, we've already reached out to the command team. Plus, our headquarters is right here located. And we've had actually a few of us actually worked for the military district of Washington. And so these are some of our people that we've known for a while. So AER actually has programs to help if they need anything for Army emergency travel, or any other expenses that they would have in time of this crisis for those in the Army. So again, my heart goes out to all those that lost a loved one.
Taking a step back from the suddenness of last night's horrible accident, for natural disasters, we often have more of a warning period. And so, Mia, I'm looking to you. What has Combined Arms learned about how to support the community for a weather event coming in? As the storm is approaching, what is your team focused on?
Thank you so much for having me today. So our headquarters is in Houston, and if anyone follows the news, Houston is a hotspot for almost every weather activity. I mean, we had 8 inches of snow last week, which is unheard of. And thankfully there was no disaster tied to that incident. But previously, just last year, a huge summer storm with intense flooding and then Hurricane Beryl. But even before that, we've just become very, very good at being ready. And it's taken a while to learn. And every time we've been hit by a storm, we've picked up something new. So I'm going to speak to Houston specifically because that's become more of a command center during these intense storms and the recovery. And what we're able to do is very quickly activate the community. That's what Combined Arms, I think, is known for in disasters, is activating the community, acting as a force multiplier for sharing the word, both for preparing, giving that information about, hey, this is coming, this is what we recommend you do to prepare, but also knowing that not, in many situations you can prepare as much as you want, but you're still in a flood zone, right? And so being prepared on that front end, but then also letting the member organizations, our partner organizations, know what to expect on the back end, that how we're still going to be a 24/7 call center. We're still going to be an aggregator of resources. And oftentimes we've been so blessed to be a recipient of Bob Woodruff funds to be able to disseminate that disaster relief to the community. So I would say we're very seasoned in this now, and we almost have a template for preparing for disaster and reacting afterwards.
Despite all those preparations, though, I know at the last big flood, you had significant members of your own team whose homes were flooded. And, Dawn, likewise, Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, you've got a couple hundred employees spread out all over the place. So how do your organizations ensure that, you put on your oxygen masks so that you can help others? How do you take care of your team members?
You're absolutely right. We have folks around the globe, 52 offices around the globe on large Navy and Marine bases, and the first thing we do, we all know preparedness, right? But when we start to see things cooking in the news, watching the weather reports, I have a person who goes to the NOAA website every day. We pick up the phone and we call those directors and we say, hey, are you tracking? Okay, what's it look like? They are very integrated with the base leadership, with the emergency management office. They do exercises. For example, our Southeast directors, due to the hurricane that normally occur there, they participate in the base hurricane exercises, right? So there's great integration with our local offices and the base, and they are kept up to speed on what's the base planning to do. Are they going to essential personnel only? And so they are relaying that information back to us. So as things evolve, we've got cell phones, we got Teams, we're doing calls at whatever hour of the night it requires to say, hey, what do you need? Do you have enough volunteers? We do have about 180 employees, but most of our service delivery comes from our wonderful volunteers. And so first we have to find out, do you have the volunteers available? What kind of capacity are you going to have? Do we need to send people to go help you to augment? And so during those calls, we have them assess the situation. Is your internet out? Do you have power? Do you have water? What do you have to do to go take care of your family first before you can take care of clients? And much like Christy mentioned earlier, we too are blessed to have people who are really dedicated to giving. And so they, okay, yep, I put a Band-Aid on my own stuff, but I got to go help sailors and Marines right now. And it's just such an amazing thing to see. But the key there is communication. What do you need? So I'll use Guam as an example. In 2023, Typhoon Maywar, it slammed Guam. Well, you can't evacuate from Guam because you're in an island out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So all hours of the night, we were talking to the director. What do you need? Okay, and the base provided her the support. So they lost power, they lost internet, except in this one little area where they happened to set up the EFAC, the Emergency Family Assistance Center. They had internet and they had a photocopier. And I'm going to give Navy Federal another shout out here. We were like, how are we going to do this casework, right? So her volunteer, our director, they were doing everything stubby pencil, right? Handwritten. And then the chief would let us use their copy machine. They photocopied and emailed those over 1,000 cases up here to headquarters. So we were fat fingering them into our system, and then we cut checks. Well, how do we get these checks to the people? Well, we have a Navy Federal office right below us, but this little branch could not process the hundreds a day. So what did Navy Federal do? They sent a courier around to our office twice a day, picked up checks, distributed it to the 43 branches in the DMV area, and processed those checks so that they could go to the ATM in Guam and get their cash. I mean, boy, talk about flexibility, agility, partnership to do what's right for the client. So it's communication. That's the key.
Mia, I don't think I ever circled back to you after that. How did you ensure that your team that were also victimized by the flooding,
Sure.
number one, how'd you take care of them? And number two, how did you proceed with your mission and what you were there to do for the community?
And so that is challenging whenever different parts of the city or even the state were impacted in different ways. So I think we were able to really flex where the biggest need was and give attention to who needed it the most immediately. But we did have 3 team members this last time around that were impacted, and they're, for the most part, we're 85% veterans on the Combined Arms team. And I mean, these guys and gals are selfless servants. So they want, as soon as they could get their power on, take care of their family, they were up helping others. And so I think there's always we always want to check in with our staff to make sure, like, mentally they're still okay with that, because that's a lot to do, to take care of yourself and your family, but then also be giving to others. But I do feel that as veterans, we're up to that task. And I have seen my team come through time and time again to do just that. Put in long hours, oftentimes in the rain, together. And I think that sometimes they feel like it's an extension of their service and it's continued training. So it might sound a little bit odd, but I think it also motivates them to get through the situation too. And we've been able to also make sure their homes are taken care of on the back end, because it's going to take a while for those resources to come in anyways. But we always make sure, is everything good to go after the storm? Are you all set? But they're very, very good about coming to the fight and handling the mission at hand, and alongside also taking care of their families.
Tony, AER has a slightly different challenge in that you've got Army employees at installations all over the place that are implementing AER funding and resources. But these people, although they represent your program, they don't work directly for you. You're not their line of command necessarily. So how do you ensure that they're okay and that they can proceed on behalf of AER when you're not their boss, so to speak?
I normally tell them, I'm not your boss, but I know all your bosses. So they go, okay, well, you got a good point there. So it makes it a little bit easier. I'll be honest with you. Just like Don, Navy, and Mia, it's all about being prepared. We have an SOP. We've already pulled it off. We got a lot of things to learn through. What if you don't have a cell phone tower and you can't use your phone? How do we get you cash, especially when the cash machines are out of money? And that's what happened in North Carolina and Nashville. So we're working through our disaster relief to actually solve that problem. We also disperse through Zelle, so if we're not there, we can give you money instantly. And I know, Don, no Nick on you, but we don't want to write the check. We just want to get you the money right to your phone. So it's all about being prepared. Charles and assistants does a fantastic job. We see a hurricane, we've all become storm watchers, and we just go, hey, we see this thing coming in. We think it's going to be here. We get the command on the net. So unlike everybody here, I don't have a responsibility, but we are governed by an Army regulation, and this is a commander's program. So we actually just get everybody on the phone, talk to the command of that local, whether that's Hawaii, Guam, Germany, Korea, and we say, here it's coming your way. Are you ready? And then once it hits, we give those specific employees that you're talking about. And I called one personally that hit Eisenhower. I said, are you okay? Do you have power? Do you have water? Is your home all right? And they say, yes, yes, yes. And then I go, okay, how can you help? So, but again, because we're part of the Army, and those employees are part of the Army, this is up to that installation to get them back on the installation. And, as most people would know, Army has constant internet anywhere around the world. They got enough generators to power the moon. So they've got all the Army has all these resources. It's just what they do. The command just has to say that employee's mission essential. And here at the headquarters, we are constantly up. We already have a 24-hour hotline. We call them. We're ready in preparation. And we also alert other bases. So if they can't provide assistance and we have internet, we can farm that assistance out to other locations. So when Eisenhower got hit, we said, okay, Liberty, Jackson, so-and-so, are you up? You're ready? Yes. So as long as they have internet connection, we can help through that. But again, the key, like everybody said, it's all about preparation.
Can I just jump on that? Tony brought up Eisenhower. So Fort Eisenhower Army Base in Augusta, Georgia. And you know, who knew there were 1,300 sailors and Marines there at a Navy Information Warfare Command? We certainly didn't know. Now, typically, you know, when we have sailors on an Army base, they would be able to go to Army Emergency Relief because we don't have a presence there. And what happened is, I mean, that area got hit so hard, the damage was so severe, so quick. AER was overwhelmed. American Red Cross was overwhelmed. And so what happened, the command master chief of this unit called a director down in Florida that he knew from a previous job and said, hey, I got 1,300 sailors here and they need help. What can you do? That call was on a Thursday. The base was shut down, planning to reopen the following Wednesday. We put together a team, couple from headquarters, a couple from North Carolina, and we deployed them and said, okay, Master Chief, we've got the resources. You know, find them an office and we will take care of your sailors. And it happened. And in 3 days, they processed over 1,000 assistance requests for those sailors who were trying to figure out how to get the trees out of the middle of their house. But again, that speaks to, you know, you have all kinds of lessons learned. You know, I think that was a first where, like, okay, our normal path of assistance, you know, call Red Cross. I mean, it was so devastating that it was, you know, the systems in place were overwhelmed. And so, you know, the flexibility, and again, I go back to the dedication of people. Hey, send me, coach, I want to go help. And they just deployed, set up shop. And the family service center people, they played, you know, traffic cop and guiding, managing crowd control and establishing when people could come, so it wasn't, you know, a big gaggle. But again, people working together, like Mia said, working together to help those in need.
It could be mass chaos, right? I mean, and in a lot of, you know, a lot of communities, there's a lot of organizations and a lot of different efforts. So to really reel those all in and kind of organize the efforts and realize we can be more powerful together if we go at this together. I think that's really where we've seen the evolution of this sort of disaster response that we've seen. I mean, for example, we have a great relationship with our local VA, Tobacco VA. It makes too much sense to bring the VA, the state resources, and the top local resources together. And then they get the word out to all of their veterans by extension. And we give veterans access to everything they could need as in disaster response, right? Bring the credit unions or the banks, bring the VA, whatever the state agencies might be offering, and the food banks, water, like all of these things. And so we've seen it in the last one, we saw 3,800 veterans come out to that. Whereas if veterans did it, or if organizations did it separately, you know, not everyone might get the word because it's not one shared message. So I've just seen how powerful we are when we collaborate together and really aggregate the resources.
We all actually do collaborate, at least all the relief societies and the American Red Cross. So if there is a disaster and you can't get to that base and you go to any Red Cross, anytime a disaster comes up, we all get on the net, not just with that base, but with the Red Cross, Navy Marine Corps, and we all say, here's what we're going to do. And we have a common agreement. So if any soldier, Navy, Marine Corps goes to the Red Cross will actually provide them assistance. And then what we do in the headquarters, we'll work off those cases every morning here at the headquarters. So we have a great collaboration between all the relief societies and the American Red Cross. My favorite thing is when soldiers go, "Oh, I love the Red Cross. They really helped me." So I go, "Yes," and it usually, and that's AER too. So because we're on the backside of that too, so it's a great collaboration.
I've had commands say, well, why should I donate to you? Why don't I donate to Red Cross? And you got to explain the whole process. Like, hey, they facilitate but it's your donor dollars.
Right. But I think a lot of individuals don't realize that you have a formalized relationship between the Red Cross and the relief societies, and that you're actually working hand in hand.
It's a very common thing for people to say to me all the time. Said, "Yeah, the Red Cross really helped me out." I just smile. That's normally what I do. So, and say, "Well, we're on the backside of that." So, it's a great relationship. We couldn't do it without them, and we love the Red Cross. All the relief societies are just phenomenal partners.
Am I understanding, Tony and Dawn, you to say then that if a uniformed service member goes into one of you for help, it doesn't really matter whether they're Army coming to AER or Army going to Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, that you can help active duty service members or their families regardless of the color of their uniform?
Yes, 100%.
And how do you validate their eligibility then? And how do you track that from across your organizations?
Well, they have to, provide their ID card, and so if it's a disaster, say a fire area, it was like, okay, prove your residence that you're in such and such zip code, and that documentation's uploaded and shared. So a sailor goes into one of Tony's offices, they would sell them the money. We'll have that capability one day. And then Tony's team on the back end, sends it over to us, all that documentation we go through, verify it, we upload it into our system, and track all that. So yeah, we definitely have that. And then it's important that we let Red Cross know, for example, if for any kind of disaster, hey, we give you blanket authority. If somebody comes to you and says, I need help, because they have the infrastructure that is much more rapid than ours, you are authorized to give them funding on our behalf, and then same process. They have a great portal. They upload the documents. We come in the next day and process it.
Do individuals always understand the services that you're able to provide and the restrictions on the assistance that you can provide?
No, they don't. They'll say, "Hey, do you do this?" And sometimes I have to say this, and I will say this: Army Emergency Relief actually doesn't help veterans. We help active duty, Guard and Reserve over 30 days, and that's one of those cases where people don't know that's who we help. We help an active duty soldier, National Guard, and Army Reserve, their family, surviving spouses. So that's the categories. That's probably the number one thing that people don't realize about Army Emergency Relief is that what you're eligible for. It's like, yeah, but I served back in, 1990 or someday. And I go, did you retire? Are you surviving spouse? And just no. So a lot of times they don't understand the services that we provide on both sides. That's when they need help, but also when they need help, they don't know that we can actually help them with that. We have 30 programs. We wish that we went to our website and you just kind of pull it all out. Here's what I've told everybody in the Army, and when I routinely meet with the Chief of Staff of the Army or somebody and say, "Hey, look, when in doubt, if you've got a question and you think you're eligible for AER, if you're active duty Guard and Reserve, you are, and you need help, financial assistance, come talk to us." So this don't make it too complicated because sometimes they don't even know the resources and the things we help with. And I don't need them to be an expert. I just need them to be willing to ask for help. I say this all the time. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You shouldn't be afraid to ask for behavioral health, and you shouldn't be afraid to come to AER and ask for financial assistance. And I truly believe that. So that's all you got to do is have a leader that cares, that says, "Hey, somebody's struggling with something," and then ask. But there's often people have no idea what we do, they think we're appropriated funds and, you just got your federal grant canceled. And I got all these emails. I said, no, we didn't. So we're good. So, because we don't get appropriated funds. So yeah, it's constant communication about what we do and what we don't do.
I was going to say, I'd go back to it. It's the communication piece, right? Particularly when you have an impending disaster, you're watching the weather. And so that's where our directors on the ground, they're in those leadership meetings. And as they're preparing for some kind of emergency or disaster, we remind that leadership level. And that's usually kind of the mid level, the E7 level, the junior officer level, and the command, and let them know, hey, okay, if we have to evacuate, you can get funds to help give you food, gas money, money for a hotel. And then when you come back and you're in recovery, Navy Marine Corps Relief is here, like, don't forget. And so that's another time that communication, that they're pounding it home with the active duty side, like, we're here, make sure your team knows that we're here for them. And another part of your question, do they understand services, taking the disaster piece out of it? You do get some people that think we're just a lending institution, well, why can't you give me money for a down payment on a house? Why can't you give me money for a down payment on a car? Like, well, we're here for needs. Well, I need a car, I need a house, so you kind of have that debate, and that's where the financial education comes in. Okay, here's what we do. If you need food on your table, you need gas in your car, I can help you right now. Now, those bigger things, let me introduce you to Christy Selby at Navy Federal Credit Union, some other institution that's where you need to go for that.
And I'm guessing there's times when all four of your organizations have to say, we can help you, but not at the level that you're asking me for, because there's also limits in how much you can provide any one household, I assume. How do you handle that when their genuine need is just, when their house is washed away? I'm guessing none of your organizations can buy them a new house. So how do you help? How do you handle those situations where you want to help, you can help, but it's not going to be enough?
We've really lived through this, right? Having to really manage expectations up front, because to your point, Meg, that there's no way that we can do that. But we can be the face of a beacon of hope in a time of a desperate time, right? And sometimes just showing that you care and listening to what they're going through is means a lot to them. And having that conversation as to what their need is. We have a full-fledged intake team, so they can see, like, what's the monetary value that you're seeking and why. Of course, we have great partnerships with the state. The state has the Funds for Veteran Assistance grant program, which has a lot of financial aid resources tied to it. But during a disaster, I mean, it's limited, right? It's in many cases, it's first come, first serve. It's a limited pot. I think it's incredibly challenging, but I think that what I've learned from our intake team is that you have to manage that expectation on the front end, that you are going to do everything that you can for them, and exhausting, looking for all of the resources. But then I would say on top of that, it's not always monetary. It could be like, this situation has really brought me to my knees in mental distress. And I need to talk to someone. And oftentimes it's in those conversations that we learn what else they need, and connect them to, for example, telehealth, the Veteran Wellness Alliance or whatnot. So all this to say is, being that person that will at least listen, I think means a lot to them. Obviously, you would love to buy them a house, or, so they can take care of rebuilding the house. But then I also think being able to stay in contact with them, right? So all of our intake team members, as they build the case and the details of the case, they do correspond with the veteran to make sure they got on their feet. And even that checking in, it really does show, how much, they do have an ambassador that's working alongside them. So I think that goes a long way.
Just wanted to say, Red Cross, I think part of the challenge here is that there's no one organization that can fix everything that happens in a disaster situation. And part of the challenge is explaining what, as your question kind of guided us to, explaining what each organization does. Red Cross sometimes gets some pushback because we don't immediately do financial assistance after big disasters. The larger disasters, we focus on what we call mass care. So that's feeding and sheltering people, making sure people are safe, dealing with just the real immediate things that we can do at large scale. And following that, the timing depends on what's going on, in the disaster, but that's when we can start looking at financial assistance. And I think that having that kind of conversation, sort of explaining that to people can be hard, because some people don't need food and shelter. They've got somewhere to stay, or they've got, they can cover stuff, but they really need some funding to do, to repair their home, to get back to where they need to be. And so that can be a challenging conversation to have with people. But I think the other thing that we try to do, and this goes to something Mia said earlier, is we really try to focus on the different organizations that can bring different things to the table. So, we have a lot of partners, even outside the veteran space, veterans and active duty space, groups that are doing home rebuilding, or that are providing, a lot of different types of services that, say, the Red Cross isn't going to do or doesn't do, but trying to, connect those dots for people, really serve, kind of like Got Your Six does, right? As this, collaborative organization, how can we connect people with those resources in a disaster environment?
I'm also seeing we're getting a number of questions about people asking for resources, and just want to make sure that our audience knows that the Bob Woodruff Foundation's Got Your Six network appears on our directory on our website. And so an individual can go to our website and search on the capabilities of our partners by geographic area. So that's a resource for everyone.
Before we leave this topic, I would say a little bit different spin. If there's an active duty soldier or eligible for AER and you need a house, you need to ask, because then I'll go to Bob Woodruff Foundation. We'll get you the money to rebuild your house. And part of them joking and part of them not.
Yeah.
I'm going to do everything, and I've told everybody in AER, we're going to find a way to say yes. There's plenty of partners out there. Now, if you're negligent and just refuse to get, home insurance, that's a different story. But, if you didn't think your house was going to be flooded, you didn't live in a flood zone, and all of a sudden your house gets flooded, man, ask for help. We had a soldier that asked for a pretty large amount of money, and everybody's like, oh, we've never done that before. And all those exceptions just come to me. And I said, yeah, we're going to do it. Yeah. And it's like, what happens if, all these people start asking for it? I said, and I told them exactly what I just told you. That's when I will start going to Navy Federal Credit Union. I'm going to go to Bob Woodruff, and you've been great partners with that. You've given us a lot of financial resources. You've given us a lot of money to help. And that's what I would say to anybody if you're going through that. It's a little different than, I don't have unlimited resources, but if you need a house in your active duty Guard Reserve, just ask, and I will do everything in my power to get you a place to stay. That's just because I love my job.
I'm seeing questions also about eligibility for AER and for Navy Marine Corps Relief Society. So, Tony, you just said it, but it's active, Guard, Reserve, and retired, and that's true for both of your organizations.
For Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, for reservists, it's reservists on 30-day or more orders.
Yeah.
So they've got to be an activated reservist. So active duty, retired, their families. And if you're a reservist, that's activated for 30 days or more. Your question earlier, Meg, do we have limits? Like Tony said, come, what is your need? We're going to assess your need. What's your immediate need for the next, short period of time? Okay, come back and see us. Have you submitted, your FEMA application? Have you contacted your insurance company? And sometimes those processes are long, and they go, well, I do have an insurance policy. I'm expecting X. Well, you need $30,000, and we know that money will come. We'll give you a bridge loan. We want to take care of your needs, make sure you got a roof over your head, you got clothes, you got food, you got gas, that you're able to function and start getting back to, whatever your new norm would be.
Ours is very similar, 30 days on active duty Guard and Reserve. And I usually say with one big caveat is what we're talking about when the disaster hits. And all that's waiverable with an exception. So if somebody says, I've got a Guard soldier not on active Guard, they're not on Title 10 orders, just ask. Just send me. I've gotten it from the United States Army, National Guard Sergeant Major said, hey, will you help these three? I said, absolutely.
I think the prevailing theme here is ask. You're not going to get help that you don't ask for, so ask for it. So, Dawn, you just mentioned FEMA, and that's something that hasn't come up before in this conversation. Do any of your organizations, I don't know that I would know how to navigate FEMA, other aid, insurance. Do any of you help people navigate that?
Oftentimes when an emergency family assistance center is set up, again, they're all different. It depends. You could have insurance companies there, you could have FEMA there, other state and local resources there. So it all depends. We bring it to their attention, like there's a process. Here's the website, or here's a flyer of information, go see if you're eligible, fill this out. But that's about the extent of it, is informing and educating them that they possibly could be eligible for that assistance.
I would add to that, as a preparation step, we do have Lone Star Legal Aid and a National Veterans Legal Aid that actually do workshops on how to prepare for working with FEMA, what to know about working with FEMA. I would say that there's some mistrust with FEMA, and it's a very complicated and long process. So, knowing what to look for, the veteran legal aids often do work with clients through this. So that's a resource that's out and that we use regularly.
Those are resources for organizations to learn how to collaborate with FEMA, or for individuals?
Individuals that are going to need to navigate the FEMA process.
I see a great question, which is, what can any of you talk about the volunteer opportunities available and how individuals could get involved and help?
I can speak to that. I know that obviously American Red Cross is going to, but we activate the community. We have lots of corporate partners that stand by the ready now because they know that there's going to be work to do with us. So we already, we have a consistent call log ready to activate, and we can activate by email, by text. All of that's pretty much ready to go because we're pretty seasoned in Houston.
I would just throw out the redcross.org is the best way to get connected on the Red Cross side. And that's both for volunteer roles on the disaster side. I actually started as a disaster volunteer, going out to house fires, responding to, individual disasters for people as I was bored with my job, and, just that's how I got started. So it's a great place to find not just disaster jobs, but also work with our Service Armed Forces program. And I think, I know that many of the people on this call and others would say, like, we can't do what we do without volunteers. So highly encourage you to reach out and come join us.
And Meg, our business model at Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, unlike Tony, we are not a part of the Navy and Marine Corps. There is not a Navy and Marine Corps instruction governing what we do. And so we rely on our 4,000 volunteers across the globe that help us deliver service. And I think I mentioned that earlier. But I want to tell you a quick story about where our volunteers activated in a disaster. Well, it wasn't a disaster. It was an unplanned event that had an impact on bases. You may recall back in August of 2021, there was a lot of evacuation of Afghan refugees. Well, they were going to bases like Bahrain and Rota and Naples and Sigonella, where we have offices. We have thrift shops run by our volunteers. And so the base turned to us and said, how can you help us? We're going to have this influx of people, children. What are we going to do until we get them further transferred to other places? I tell you what, these volunteers jumped in. They took donations from communities. They made bags for the families when that plane arrived. They had snacks. The kids had coloring books. They had hygiene kits. I mean, it was nothing we'd ever done before, but it was one of those situations where the need arose, the base turned to the society and said, what can you do to help? And boy, they put their brains together like, boom, here we go. And I mean, it was amazing. They helped load this stuff onto pallets to, fly off to wherever the next destination was. But, we couldn't have done that support without volunteers, without their creativity, without their dedication, and willingness to literally roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty.
It's these stories of service and learning what your organizations do, I think that is a bright spot in the context of an incredibly sobering topic. I want to thank our amazing panelists. Thank you so much for your time today and for all that your teams are doing to help people all over the place day after day. Any last remarks from any of you?
Thank you again for pulling this together. And Mia, I'd never heard of Combined Arms. Like, what a great organization, So we are fairly new to the Got Your Six group. And so I'm super excited to be a part of it and learn more. So appreciate everybody's efforts. And, we are better together.
Thank you.
Yeah, Meg, I just say thanks for putting this together. Thanks to Bob Woodruff Foundation and Anne Marie, the CEO for Bob Woodruff Foundation, a wonderful person. Talked to her a couple of times. You've got a great organization, and I really appreciate it. And also a great partner of Red Cross. I'm always going to thank the American Red Cross. You make us look good. You help soldiers and their families across the globe, and we can't thank you enough for all the hard work and dedication to do. And I'll close with those boots on the Bob Woodruff Foundation. Those are Army boots. Just want to put that out there.
Bob's boots. Thank you all. Thank you to the Navy Federal Credit Union for enabling this today, and best wishes to everyone.